Classic Restos, proudly brought to you by Shannons. Sign up for the Shannons Club, Kenworth Trucks Australia, Pace Farm Eggs, and Holden Certified Service AC Delco Parts.
G'day, I'm Fletch and welcome as I bring you to episode 1 as I make my way across a section of the United States of America for 2024. These episodes you're about to see are a big thanks to Shannons. And the USA trip for 2024 involves crossing around about 13 states. Vehicle of choice to do the trip, an American-made Jeep Grand Cherokee. And I thought there's no better place than to start these episodes than in the Motown city of Detroit, Michigan. Detroit, it's a special place, not only to me personally, but from the historic standpoint as well. Detroit was founded July 24th, 1701, so 323 years ago at time of today's filming. Detroit was incorporated as a city in 1815. The area also earned a reputation for the manufacturing of cigars and cast iron kitchen stoves. Manufacturing was huge here. In fact, Detroit was the richest city in the world back in the 1950s. New York is the richest city in the United States today, putting things into some perspective. Detroit also became the motor city instead of the stove-making capital of the world, and that was because of Henry Ford. He built his first car here, and that wasn't a world's first, but it's the way he built them via his moving assembly line. And that was how the world was put on wheels, and then others followed suit. How cool is this? I am standing in the Detroit Motor City's National Heritage Area, and it's time now to go and check out the Pontiac Transportation Museum. First time on Classic Restos, and an exclusive thanks to Shannons. Phase 1 of the Pontiac Transportation Museum was opened 16th of May 2024. So now it just needs you to visit as they expand to complete this wonderful tribute to the Pontiac brand. After several years of setting up, generous donations and people donating Pontiac artifacts have given Motor Cities another classic vehicle museum. And that's what we want. Museums opening, not closing. The Oakland brand is where it all started. Then General Motors took over, producing the Pontiac from 1931. Due to a GM restructure, the Pontiac brand ceased production in 2010. It's early days for this museum, but here is some of their timeline. With us now we have the chair of the board here at the Pontiac Transportation Museum. How are you, Terry?
I'm great, Fletch. Thanks for being here this morning.
That's okay. You've really come a long way in just a handful of years, haven't you?
Absolutely. It's been about 5 years from the very start of this thing, but over the last 6 months, things really happened fast.
To think in just over, 100 years, there were 2,500 automobile makers that were here in this part of the United States. And of course, we know the big three, and there's others as well. Of course, we've got our Pierce Arrows and our Duesenbergs and Packard and what have you. It's just nice to see that now Pontiac has come through with your own museum.
Yeah, the community of Pontiac is largely a GM town, but it did, just as the industry started with a number of manufacturers. In fact, there were 47 companies that built and engineered wheeled vehicles in Pontiac.
It's almost hard to believe that when we understand the big three, for example, that there were 2,500 manufacturers that have gone through, which means every brand had to have a plant, it had to have tooling, it had to have staff. And when you look at that timeline, that's quite amazing.
Yeah, GM itself is, of course, assembled from quite a wide variety of these small manufacturers that Billy Durant effectively acquired over the years.
And Pontiac, prior to that, the Oakland make of car, right?
Right. We're standing next to the 1908 Pontiac. It's called the Pontiac, but it actually has nothing to do with GM and Pontiac division of GM. Oakland was the first major success in terms of car manufacturing in Pontiac, but this was built by a Carriage manufacturer on the south side of Pontiac, and it looks kind of like a Carriage. It's got a little two-cylinder brush engine underneath it, built in 1907 and 1908. It's known as kind of the Pontiac High Wheeler, built by the Spring and Wagon Works Carriage Company, which was a huge manufacturing complex on the south side of Pontiac. In fact, the largest manufacturing complex in the whole United States west of Detroit at one point in time. And that same facility had an immense amount of responsibility for early trucks and early cars. And as we'll probably talk later, early trucks actually preceded cars in Pontiac. This was only built for 2 years, wasn't any big market success. They only built about 200 copies of this, but we got a beautifully restored one that remains here.
You don't see too many of this era with a radiator up front like that.
Yeah, I mean, people react a little bit to the radiator on this because radiators were big on these cars, even though this car, I think, made 12 horsepower. But the waste heat was probably incredible because the compression ratios were probably about 3 to 1. And the other thing people typically notice about this is the white tires. I always get questions of why does it have white tires? Well, the nature of the industry was the tire manufacturers didn't learn how to use carbon black until about 1910. And so natural rubber is actually this whitish color, which is, by the way the Michelin Man is colored white because he was the icon of Michelin way before 1900.
1896, I believe, for the Michelin Man.
Yeah, very early mascot.
Now, Terry, you mentioned earlier that trucks made a significant role before cars. We've got a 1907 Rapid coach. What's the story here?
Yeah, the Rapid Truck Company was started by two Jewish immigrants, actually in 1902. Moved to Pontiac in 1904, and flourished. In fact, Pontiac was the first commercial truck manufacturer in the world that had a successful commercial truck, shipping to Europe as early as 1905. Really remarkable. And the Ford approach to commercial trucks actually didn't happen until like 1917 because Henry Ford had his hands very busy with the car market. So this is, again, a little two-cylinder engine under what looks like a Carriage. This one's built as a sightseeing coach, and so it's got a lot of seating. Most of them were built to carry lumber, carry coal, carry fuel oil, whatever, and so they were built as lorries. But it's a common commercial chassis, just has a different body on top of it.
All right, Terry, what's going on here? The 1914 Carter car, what's the affiliation?
So Byron Carter built Carter cars in Pontiac from 1905 to 1915. And Carter Car was actually a pretty successful organization, built about 30,000 cars over time. In fact, successful enough that, again, Billy Durant came to Pontiac and saw Carter Car and bought Carter Car. There was actually Carter Car division of GM for a few years before GM decided to put it out of production. The Carter Car is interesting in a lot of respects. It's a continuously variable transmission, so it's got a mechanical set of discs underneath that can generate very high gear ratios. So gradability was always a problem for these light torque engines, and Carter Car was very good at that.
Looking at this Carter car as well, it looks like it was designed for slightly the upper echelon as well. It looks like an expensive car for 1914.
Certainly more expensive than Model Ts and where the volume of the market was in those years.
When I was a kid, I loved cars. Still do. The 57 Cadillac Eldorado Brougham was the most advanced car in the world. Cost more than a Rolls. Hand-built with a stainless steel roof, cruise control, electric seats, and would you believe, air suspension. American iron. It's a passion Shannons understand. That's why they insure my daily drive, the caddy, my bike, even the house.
Call Shannons on 13 46 46. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts.
When it comes to cars, there are some brands that will remain with us forever, no matter what. The Holden was always Australia's own car, held high in the hearts of many. Those lines, that chrome, the stories around them, and the people that owned them. From the classic through to the final, you can still trust in genuine Holden and AC Delco parts, available through the Holden Certified Service Network.
Your story began in 1971. It's part of an endless tapestry that tells the story of our nation. It connects innovators to artisans, forests to houses, from the largest of operations to the smallest of outcomes. It's heritage. It's a legacy.
And who doesn't love a roadster? Behind us here, a 1929 Oakland inline six. What a beautiful car, Terry.
Absolutely. So you're probably aware, Fletch, that the whole auto industry starts from the carriage industry in the whole Detroit area. And Oakland started from Pontiac Buggy, which was a very successful carriage manufacturer about a third of a mile northeast of here. And a guy named Ed Murphy had started Oakland Motor Company out of the Pontiac Buggy Company.
Beautiful streamlining when we look at the design of this car, even around the front of the grille there, and the headlights, around the fenders, the shaping, spare wheel there, sitting there in the well there, and the fender and the running board. Oh, a beautiful, beautiful machine. And again, I guess these would have been fairly pricey for the time as well. I think Roadsters always did sit up. They were in that more expensive bracket, weren't they?
Absolutely. It's a rumble seat coupe. And so that was some added expense and attraction to people. Very stylish, but you can carry another two passengers in the back. You'll see it's got a golf bag door on the passenger side, which was obviously a very upscale feature at that point in time.
That was a Duesenberg thing, wasn't it, to have the door in the side?
Several manufacturers, Packard probably most notably in terms of the volume in the marketplace. But so all these upscale brands took a big hit in the Depression of the U.S. in 1929, and that was part of the transition from naming the division Oakland to Pontiac, because by 1931, the Pontiac nameplate was outselling the Oakland nameplate like 10-1. So GM effectively just renamed the division in 1932.
Interesting times, because mentioning the Duesenberg, a lot of those cars were built in the late 20s. They weren't sold until the early 30s, weren't they?
Well, Duesenberg probably, was almost immune from the Depression, because the people that bought Duesenbergs were fabulously wealthy at the time. And so it was probably the moderately wealthy people that took the big hit during the Depression.
Terry, 1931 Oakland V8. That's a nice-looking engine.
Yeah, I mentioned Oakland was a premium manufacturer, so they marketed a V8 in 1930 and 31, and it's a special sort of V8. Many performance enthusiasts today are excited about the flat plane V8s that the Ford Mustang brought to market and the Chevy Corvette has and so forth now. Different sort of a V8, makes a more aggressive sound, and it basically places the crank throws at 180 degrees as opposed to 90 degrees. This is actually a flat plane V8 that Benjamin Annable, that was the chief engineer of Oakland and Pontiac at the time, has numerous patents on this engine. And so it made a remarkable amount of power for 1931.
Terry, how good is this outside in the main part, one of the main parts of the museum? It's a spacious area. How many square feet you got here?
Well, what's open to the public right now is about 12,000 square feet, but we're headed for opening the whole building, which is 55,000 square feet.
That's awesome. You did a wonderful job on the floor. The presentation is just wonderful. And, of course, the donations have been generous, but there's more to come. This is early days for you guys, and you've got big expansions in mind for the future, haven't you?
Yeah, we've been fortunate to have a couple of very generous donors, individuals that have made this happen in phase one. We really need to access some public foundations and so forth, but what they had told us is they love what our mission is, they love where we're going, they wanted to see it open. So we've done that now, so now we're reapproaching foundations and corporations.
It's kind of like, there it is, it says so in the magazine, that sort of thing, right?
Exactly.
I love the cars you've got in here, such a variation of cars. Are they on loan? They're consigned cars. How have you got them?
Well, I'm an engineer, so when we started up the museum, I thought getting cars was going to be the hard part, but getting the money's the hard part. The cars, about half of what you see, have actually been donated to the 501c3, our nonprofit corporation. The other half are really individually owned, but the owners are very happy to have them in the museum, and we put their name in front of them and display them proudly. Yeah.
That's tremendous, really, really good. You just got to get to places like this to fully appreciate them, and it helps these guys as well. This is legacy stuff. No matter what brand or make, it's legacy stuff. We have to keep this history going, and there's no better place too. Part of the Motor Cities here in Detroit. It's the heart of the epicenter where everything was happening. You know, the richest city in the world back in the 1950s from manufacturing. A lot of history there, Terry.
Yeah, enormously successful industry, obviously, which did generate a lot of economic wealth in the area. And right now, it's a legacy that people actually come to visit our area to learn about this and see this.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Terry, the car behind us, who doesn't like this? Here's another special car, 1964 GTO, sitting here in all its exuberance. That's a nice example.
It's a perfect example, to be perfectly honest. So 64, this is original top, original interior, original paint on the car. This was called Sunfire Red, which probably was a low runner paint because GTO was kind of a macho car. This is maybe not quite as macho a paint color, but it's also a 389 tri-power 4-speed. So Pontiac usually gets credited in the U.S. with starting the muscle car era because big engine, mid-sized car, 64 GTO was the start of that.
And the Tempest, where did the Tempest fit in there?
The Tempest is really the same platform or same body style as this. The ornamentation on the GTO separated it. GTO was actually an option in 1964. It wasn't a specific model even off the Tempest.
You look at the side profile, nice car, and like Terry alluded to, it is a mid-sized car. And it's got a beautiful interior there with the low back bucket seats. That shifter, that just screams performance all day long. And even the dash, we look at the 4 round dials there on the instrument cluster there, that spells performance as well with the fish scale metal behind them as well. It's a nice look.
I think the 64 is really just the start, that then the GTO became more and more sort of macho muscle car the next couple of years. The 68 GTO is a great example of that's when you start to introduce the Ram Air engines. It's got more tires on it. It's hideaway headlamps, Endura front bumper, and so forth. A remarkable car.
In the performance era, things just got better from 64, didn't they?
Absolutely, yeah.
I've been a motoring enthusiast all my life. My Coupe 4 is rare and very special. A real performance car with all-wheel drive grip. I'm not a car club bloke and I don't work on it myself, but I do have a great mechanic. One day, I might even get that HQ. When it comes to insurance, it's got to be Shannons.
Shannons shares your passion. Call Shannons on 13 46 46. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts.
They may not be making the classic Holden anymore, but the legacy lives on. You can still have a Holden certified service using genuine Holden and AC Delco quality parts at over 180 centres across Australia. Go to holden.com.au to find your nearest centre. Book your Holden in, maintain the pride. These exclusive United States episodes are proudly brought to you by Shannons. Why not pick up the phone and give Shannons a call for a quote and a chat on 134646? And becoming a member of the Shannons Club has never been easier. For more information, visit shannons.com.au and access Australia's largest automotive online hub. This is amazing at the back here. It's huge.
Lots of space. This is our phase 2 and phase 3 area of the museum. So there's just construction lighting back here now. There's no HVAC and so forth, but you'll see there's lots of neat products.
Yeah, I can feel the potential here. The row of these cars here is 20s, 30s, got 40s cars there. Out the back, what did this building used to be?
So this started off as the Crowfoot Elementary School in Pontiac. And Pontiac has, because of demographics, downsized their school-age children. So they retired this school in 2007, and it was donated to us. But it actually was built in an open concept where the classrooms didn't have doors and in some cases didn't have walls, which is probably a profoundly bad idea for elementary schools, but a great idea for something that's turned into a museum because there's no small rooms.
And the big lower section, the big square part where we look down, did that used to be a cafeteria or something down there for the kids?
That was actually a library, an open stack kind of a library. It has that floating staircase in it and so forth. So yeah, provides a beautiful kind of an architecture for a museum.
Okay, now we've got Chief Pontiac. Now he's made a presence as well. How did you find him?
So the Pontiac brand used Native American imagery pretty profoundly, and they used it very respectfully, which is great. The 23.5-foot tall Native American that we have, it's a big fiberglass statue, stood in front of a dealership in Asheville, North Carolina for about 60 years. There is no dealership anymore, so he got given to us. Fletch, we're going to walk down this row and see cars that we've lined up in chronological order, but I'll start with, this is a 1901 Carriage built by the Pontiac Spring and Wagon Works. This is what people rode around in 1901. And a short 11 years later, here's a 1912 Oakland, built about a third of a mile from here. It's a brass era car, but not everybody could afford these by 1912, but this is what people definitely aspired to and where the world was headed. It's obviously still a crank start vehicle and still pretty primitive vehicle, but you can see the car's in the making. The next car in this lineup is a 1917 Olympian. And Olympian was kind of an obscure brand, only ran for about 3 years on the south side of Pontiac. There's only 2 Olympians left in the world. There's one here and there's one in our other room. So Fletch, this is a 1929 Oakland. So we're 28 years after that buckboard Carriage back there. And you'll see it's a pretty upscale looking, high style car. I mean, if you were a relatively rich and famous person, this is the kind of thing you want to drive. Here's a 31 Pontiac. So Oakland and Pontiac were still the same division. This is selling at a little bit lower price, but you'll see it's starting to show. GM had an art and color studio by the late 20s, and this is starting to show more integrated fenders, lamps, etc., more attention to styling, because that's what people wanted starting in the 30s was a little bit better style cars.
And also, too, we've got Chief Pontiac up there on the hood on them.
Native American imagery, a big deal in Pontiac. So here's a 1938 Pontiac. This is right in the thick of Art Deco styling here. Pontiac had this streamline theme, the Silver Streak theme, for about 21 years. It was a hallmark of Pontiacs. And again, even more integrated fenders and lamps and so forth on this car. This is really the art and color studio showing up here. The last car in this lineup here is a 1942 Pontiac. So you're probably aware that with the World War II starting, all the automotive industry in the U.S. shifted over to armaments production by the first week of February of 1942. So this is an early build 42. Again, still shows the Silver Streak styling, still shows the Native American imagery on the hood. This car is remarkable because it's only got 23,900 miles on it. It's a time capsule. It's had minor paint repair on the outside, but everything else is completely original.
Check this out, 1973 Pontiac, a Grand Am Wagon. This is a beautiful thing, Terry.
Yeah, this is actually a prototype, though. This car was not in production. A gentleman named Tom Goad was the product planner for Pontiac at that time, and he proposed a high-performance wagon, and it still looks pretty sporty and fun today. But in 1973, that was right up against the Arab oil embargo in the U.S., and so I think Pontiac basically decided not to do the sport wagon at that point.
Terry, this is a very cool long roof car. It's beautiful. Sunroof in the top. It's a 7-seater, 2 seats in the back as well. Red velour interior. And one thing I've always loved about what Pontiac did with their instrument cluster, they were big on the chrome bezel rings around their instruments. I just think that's a nice touch.
Yeah, obviously a driver's car, you want the driver focused on the instruments. So yeah, you want to highlight the instruments of the car.
Now, the Pontiac Scoops factory in the top of the hood for this prototype, do they have a name?
Yeah, they're called NACA, N-A-C-A. They're basically aerodynamically designed to promote airflow.
So designed as a prototype, what was the general response? Could it have gone ahead, in your opinion?
My opinion is it would have been a winner. Probably not in 1973 model year, but certainly later. I mean, wagons remained very popular into the early 80s until the minivan kind of took over a lot of that market in the U.S.
Went from these to a minivan.
Yeah, I mean, this is really a very sporty package because I think it was designed to accommodate a 455 V8 4-speed and a driver's car, but you had to carry the family as well.
What a package, eh? 455 up front, what a cool ride.
Yeah, I love performance wagons. Okay, we got a half a dozen GTOs down here. We've kind of lovingly called this the Tiger Pit. And you'll see the 66 convertible. I'll show you a special car reveal in a second, the 73 GTO, 68 GTO, et cetera. But in 1970, when Pontiac introduced the GTO Judge, that was really something that was fun for the public, and it was intended to be the judge of performance on the street. So let me show you a 70 Judge. The car was spectacular. The performance was spectacular. It sort of played off a popular TV show at the time called Laugh-In that had a Here Come the Judge skit. And then Pontiac played up to all that with the advertising. For instance, they had an advertisement that talked about how the judge could be bought, that you can buy that car and rule the street. So it was just a fun time.
Terry, I want to take this opportunity to thank you. This is a Classic Restos exclusive to come in here, and it just goes to show what is on offer for down the track with these guys. Plenty of cars out the back here, and I can just imagine down the track with the floors done and lighting, it's going to be an incredible place. And the opportunity to get in here in these early stages, it's going to be nothing but looking forward for you, Terry, and I wish you all the very best with it all.
Thanks, Fletch. It's certainly a pleasure to show off the place. It's a labor of love for those of us that love classic cars. Yeah.
Good on you, Terry. We'll keep up the great work, you and your team, okay? And we'll see you back here again soon.
Good. Look forward to it.
Well, we are out of time, and that is episode 1. I hope you've really enjoyed just a toe in the water of the Pontiac Transportation Museum here in Pontiac, Michigan, United States of America. And there'll be more US content coming your way on next week's show. Until then, please ride and drive safe. I'm Fletch. Thanks for watching.
You can like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Classic Restos TV and watch catch-up episodes at shannons.com.au.
Classic Restos, proudly brought to you by Shannons. Sign up for the Shannons Club, Kenworth Trucks Australia, Pace Farm Eggs, and Holden Certified Service AC Delco Parts.